Good evening. We are gathered for the public comment session on the Anderson House Section 106 review. We appreciate everyone joining us that's here live, but also through our WebEx meeting connection. If you are here live, would please sign in at the back of the room. That would be fantastic. We also have representation here tonight from our long-range planning department. So if you are interested in learning more about historic preservation throughout Pasco County, or would just like more information about what's happening within our planning department, please see Sinead before you leave this evening. For those of you joining us virtually, you can leave your email address in the chat and we will get that information to you as well. So to kick things off and to tell us more about the Section 106 review process for the Anderson House, we're joined by Matt Marino, who is our Cultural and Heritage Resources Management Consultant with Paleo West.
Hi, thanks Paula, and thanks everyone. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. I think I might need permission to share a screen.
And I will say, while that's happening, for those of you that have joined us virtually, I know that some of you have expressed an interest to speak already, and we will make you a panelist when it comes time to the public comment period. If you have not already shared with us that you'd like to speak this evening, if you would just send a message in the chat, or if you'd like to capture your comment in the chat only, feel free to do that as well.
Thanks, Paula. So I think I can see on your screen in there that you can see my screen. So I think we're good to go. So as Paula said, we will be talking about the Centennial Park remodel and Anderson Family Park project and the project's effects to historic properties. My name's Matt Marino. I work for Paleo West, and we're a cultural resources management firm, and we are retained by Pasco County Libraries to help navigate this project through the Section 106 process. So public input is an important part of this process, and that's why we're all here, to inform you about the project and its impacts to historic properties, and to solicit your input on the measures that Pasco County has proposed to resolve these impacts. So the project itself includes repurposing portions of the Centennial Park Branch Library campus to create a neighborhood park. The park concept currently includes gathering and interactive spaces, playground equipment, an amphitheater, open space for a variety of gathering types, and an elevated pathway through an existing retention basin. But before we get into more of the project specifics, I do want to give a brief overview of the Section 106 process, just so y'all know where we are at in that process. I'll talk a bit about the Anderson House and the project's impacts and the mitigation measures, and then after that, we'll open the floor to your comments. These comments don't need to be limited to anything that we've discussed today. We would love to hear your thoughts about the project and the mitigation measures, but we're really open to any and all comments, and all of your perspectives will be taken into consideration as the project moves through the Section 106 process.
And Matt, I'd like to jump in just for a moment.
Sure.
For those in the room, they may have noticed that we are recording this session, of course, so that it will be available in the future. But we also have a representative from the Tampa Bay Times here with us, who recently did an article, and so he's here to capture some more information, and we'll be just watching silently.
Yeah, and if you don't feel like standing up and making your comments during this meeting in front of everybody, that's not a problem at all. You can submit verbal comments by calling me or leaving me a voicemail. You can submit written comments to a library representative tonight, or you can email your comments to my email address. Now, the formal comment period will remain open for 2 weeks following this meeting, so through the end of the month. What that means basically is that we're going to hold off on continuing the process until everybody's had a chance to submit comments to us. Now, after those 2 weeks are up, we'll still accept any comments that come in, but we just can't guarantee that they'll be received prior to completion of the next step or any step of the Section 106 process. So I'll just give a brief overview of Section 106 so we can understand its purpose and where we're at in the process. So Section 106 is part of the National Historic Preservation Act, and it makes federal agencies assume responsibility for the effects of their projects on historic properties. Now, since this project is partially funded by a grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, Pasco County then is responsible for compliance with Section 106. Generally, there's 4 steps in this process. You initiate the process, identify historic properties, assess adverse effects, and resolve adverse effects. So this process was initiated when Pasco County determined that they would receive federal funds from HUD for the project, and then 2 historic properties that could be potentially impacted by the project were identified. That's the Anderson House and also the Samuel Baker House. PaleoS then prepared a case study report for the county that assessed the effects of the project on these properties. This report is available on the county website. Also, I think there may be hard copies in some of the library facilities, but as that report details, we determined that the project would adversely affect the Anderson House, but would not adversely affect the Baker House. And that's because the project requires demolition of the Anderson House, but there are no proposed alterations to the Baker House. So as part of this step 3 of the process, we summarized the county's attempts to avoid demolishing the Anderson House. So preservation of the Anderson House was actually the first priority for the county. And prior to developing any of the concepts that we showed here, they explored options that would allow for preservation of the structure. It had been vacant since 2015, and it was deemed unsafe for occupation in its existing condition. And in 2016, the county retained a professional architect to evaluate the structure and to develop a cost estimate for repairs. The repairs would cost roughly $627,000 in 2020. And so at this point, funding for the house comes through maintenance facility programs, but those funds are limited because priority is given to occupied spaces that provide essential services to the citizens of Pasco County. So it would be expensive to rehabilitate, but the county didn't stop there. They applied for a number of grants to fund a project that would rehabilitate the house. Starting in 2016, 3 grant applications were submitted to the Florida Department of State's Division of Historical Resources, but funding wasn't awarded. The county did, however, secure a community development block grant from HUD and began to move forward with a project that would support the goals of that program, which are to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment. So coupled with the existing library facilities, the proposed park is intended to provide residents a healthy and safe public space in which to engage and socialize with other members of the community and to maintain physical, mental, and intellectual health. The project, however, would require demolition of the Anderson House. So we're now at step 4 of the Section 106 process, and the county is attempting to resolve the adverse effect to the Anderson House through implementation of mitigation measures, which I'll get into in a minute. But first, I want to talk about what makes the Anderson House significant. This is a photo of the Anderson House. I think it was taken sometime around 1950. The house itself was built in 1938 for Charles Anderson, a prominent citrus grower on what was once a site of grove lands. This aerial photograph is from 1941. It shows what the area looked like at this point just 3 years after the home was built. If we zoom in a bit on this photo, we can just make out the roof line of the Anderson house. Anderson was born in Montana, and he had been a rancher until moving to Polk County in 1918. And once in Polk, he started growing citrus and then moved on to help organize and serve as the president of both the Lake Hamilton Citrus Growers Association and the First National Bank of Lake Hamilton. Anderson moved to Tampa, where he also served on the board of directors of the Florida Citrus Exchange Board and served as the director of the Growers Loan and Guarantee Company. The house itself was designed by Gary Boyle. He was an architect who practiced in Tampa during the 1930s. And the builder was Guy Kinsey. He was the husband of Anderson's daughter, Margaret. The Kinsey family actually lived in the adjacent Baker House for several years before moving to Tampa in 1942. I'm going to read a little excerpt from the National Register of Historic Places form that really sums up the architectural significance of the Anderson House. The Anderson House is significant at the local level in the area of architecture. Built during the Depression era, the residence combined innovative design features and contemporary materials with traditional construction techniques. Mahogany paneling, an electric garage door opener, telephone room, solar water heater, garbage incinerator, walk-in shower, and continuous electrical outlets are all amenities and features that were unique for the time and place. Also of note is that Anderson raised dogs, and the house features a cast concrete doghouse complete with a foyer. So now that we have an idea of the house's architectural significance and the historic context, I do want to talk some about the proposed mitigation measures that are intended to highlight this significance. So in general, mitigation measures are intended to provide a public benefit that compensates for the loss or for the diminishment of historic property. And generally, they should focus on the characteristics of the property that contribute to its significance. And in order to resolve the adverse effect to the Anderson House, Pasco County is considering the following measures. I'll expand on these in a second, but I do want to acknowledge that while the county is evaluating all of these measures, due to budget constraints, not all of them will be selected for implementation. So we are hoping to prioritize some of these measures based on input that we received tonight and over the next few weeks. And we'll also consider any new measures that are suggested. So the first measure is naming the grounds Anderson Family Park. This will serve as a tribute to the former owners and occupants, but more importantly, it'll establish a significant place name that'll live on and it'll be related to the Anderson family and the property. Next is preparation of a narrative and application for a Florida historical marker for the Anderson House. The historical marker program provides a highly visible and easily accessible landmark that can draw people to the site from the road. Pasco County currently has 5 Florida historical markers. There's additional county markers throughout the county, but the statewide program has 5 markers in the county, and the closest one is the Chipko Township marker pictured here, which is near Dade City, about an hour's drive from the library. Something I do want to clarify for this mitigation measure is that we can only commit to preparing the materials and submitting the application. The historical marker program is managed by the Department of State, and it's a typical application process. So we can't commit to installing a Florida historical marker because we just don't have the authority to do that. But we would commit to preparing all of the materials and submitting the application necessary to apply for the marker, and we could commit to installing it on site if it did get approved. The county is also considering the development of interpretive materials and exhibits to be utilized at the Centennial Park Library. And this can include anything from indoor exhibits within the library or outdoor panels that can be installed along the environmental walk or at any other appropriate location on the grounds. But it can also include online exhibits and interpretive materials. Another option is completion of Historic American Building Survey documentation, or HABS documentation, for the Anderson House. The HABS program is managed by the National Park Service, and it was established as a nationwide survey of historic architecture on a national scale and to uniform standards. So those standards typically include large format photographs, measured drawings like the one pictured here from the Anderson House, and written historical reports. And these records are submitted to the Library of Congress and are then freely available to the public, copyright free and online through the Library of Congress's Prints and Photographs Division. Now, as a slightly more modern alternative to the standard HABS documentation, the county is considering production of a publicly accessible high-resolution VR or 3D model of the exterior and interior elements of the house. This type of model can be accessed via link online, sort of like a YouTube video, which means it can also be loaded onto exhibit displays or featured on library websites. Points of interest can also be added to the model to make for a more interactive, augmented reality type experience. We do have a few examples of these models online. This is just a screenshot of one, but they do allow you to sort of grab the model and spin it around and look at it at all different angles and zoom in and out. And if an interior model was prepared, we could add points to highlight certain architectural or historical elements of the structure. It's also possible to allow salvage of architectural elements of the house, like the mahogany paneling, for example, for use in some interpretive exhibits or even for some local county or historical society preservation projects. And finally, the county did consider relocation of the house to a new site. And the county's architect, again, was retained to evaluate the feasibility of moving the Anderson House. And they determined that while the ability to move the house is possible, that preparation of the structure for remediation that would be required to begin moving the building is fairly cost prohibitive. And then there's the whole cost of the move itself. And additionally, from a Section 106 perspective, when we're considering alternatives to demolition or some other activity that would have an adverse effect, we try to look for measures that would avoid the adverse effect, but moving a house from its historic location to another location would most likely still result in an adverse effect to the resource. So that covers all the mitigation measures that are being considered. So we'd love to talk to you all about them. Again, these comments don't need to be limited to anything that we've discussed today. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the project and the resource and the mitigation measures, but we're open to any and all comments that you wish to make. Again, if you don't feel like making those comments here, that's not a problem. You could submit verbal comments via voicemail or a phone call to me, or you can submit written comments to a library representative or to my email address. As Paula said, this presentation was recorded and will be posted online, so it can be viewed by people not in attendance, and then they can submit comments over the next 2 weeks up until June 30th, and of course anytime after that. But beyond that, we can't guarantee that they'll be received prior to reaching the next milestone in the Section 106 process. So with that, I'll pass it back to Paula if she wants to add anything.
Well, we do have a few questions that have come in. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. So I'll begin to read those. There's a question: what will be done with salvaged architectural elements? And I know
that's
you
a great
touched
question.
on that, but if you could expand.
Yeah, sure. At this point, we don't know. That type of clarification is something that is arrived at through consultation with the public and with the Florida State Historic Preservation Officer, or SHPO. We're currently engaged in consultations with the SHPO, and this was mitigation measure that was proposed by them. So if this is something that the county continues to explore, we would most likely reach out to interested members of the public and to like the West Pasco Historical Society, any other historical societies, or county facilities that may be interested in use of the salvaged materials. What probably wouldn't happen is the county salvaging materials without having a good idea of what to do with them. Because once you start having to deal with how are we going to store the materials and keep them preserved while they're in storage, while still having to figure out what happens to them, that becomes a very confusing process to navigate. And once these mitigation measures are finalized, they will be recorded in a memorandum of agreement. This is an agreement document between the county and the state that says we're going to do these things to resolve the adverse effect. So if we list salvage as one of those things, we need to be clear as to what happens with those materials. So like I said, we'll probably come up with a more concrete plan as to how to involve those materials, incorporate them into either exhibits at the library, or how to get them in the hands of county agencies or historical societies for use in subsequent preservation projects.
And that question was from Jeff Cannon on who's joined us virtually, and he does have a couple of more. Can the county and libraries commit to the purchase of a county marker if the state marker cannot be obtained?
They certainly can. Again, we're looking for things that are recorded in an MOA with SHPO. I don't see any reason why the SHPO would disagree with any sort of county level marker. I think the preference would be a state, a Florida historical marker, a statewide marker. But we can definitely commit to, pursuing a Pasco County marker, either in addition to, or if the Florida historical marker, for some reason that application gets rejected. But I think that's a great option, and we can certainly include that in the mitigation measures that we're considering.
Okay, and Mr. Cannon is also asked, how will the 3D model be preserved for future generations? Will it be submitted to the state archives website?
Yeah, so when we prepare anything that is sort of electronic in nature, whether it is a 3D model or a story map or a documentary or historical narrative, we try to host those things in the most publicly accessible location possible. Usually that is the website, in this case, the Pasco Library's website. Even better if we had an exhibit on site than having some sort of display to put it on there. But all of this electronic material does get filed with the state in the Florida Master Site file. That's the statewide repository for all his documents, manuscripts related to historic preservation around the state. The Florida Master Site file currently has site forms on file for both the Anderson House and the Baker House. So anything that we produce will be added to the site file associated with the existing records for the structures.
And what will happen to the historic marker currently on the home?
If I think he's referencing the nameplate, the National Register of Historic Places plate, which is definitely something that we would prefer to salvage. And again, that's something that we're going to work out with SHPO in terms of where that ends up. For something like that, we do prefer that it stays on site in some way, which I don't think will be much of an issue because we do have the existing library facility that will remain in place. So most likely that that nameplate will remain on site, but again, we're open to considering any other options for where that will end up.
If the cost of preservation is $620,000, what is the proposed cost of the new park?
So I can't answer that. Paula may be able to answer in terms of numbers. I don't know if she has that information available, but it is important to consider the purpose of the project. So had the county been awarded the grants for preservation, um, we would be here for a project that proposes to rehabilitate um, the Anderson House, as opposed to a park project that requires demolition. Um, the county was awarded the CDBG grant from HUD, and the purpose of that program is to create sustainable communities um, nationwide. So while the county was awarded those funds, they can't use those funds to preserve the structure, because preservation of the structure means we can't build the park, and building the park is part of the project need that contributes to the goals of the grant. So basically, using the grant monies for preservation would result in the county losing those grant funds, and then they're back at square one.
Can the doghouse be preserved and incorporated if the home is not saved?
I think that is certainly a mitigation measure that we can consider. It's a small concrete cast in place, structure. So I don't think we have to worry about its structural integrity, because it's not going to be occupied, hopefully, by anybody anytime soon. Now, whether it can be preserved in place is going to be it's going to need to be evaluated by the project design team, because I don't know specifically what elements of the park are proposed for that specific location. But we can get with the architect and the design team and evaluate the possibility for both preserving it in place and just moving it until the project is completed, and placing it back on site somewhere.
Mr. Cannon has a follow-up on the HUD grant. It asks, can the goals of the HUD grant be met if a nonprofit was to utilize the building?
That is a good question, and I think I would have to reach out to HUD to answer that question. And of course, it would depend on what the nonprofit that occupies the structure does, who they are.
We have a representative with us tonight from Community Services, Telly Bruno, and so she has offered to add some information for us.
I can take a little bit of a stab at that question. So my name is Hillary Bruno, and I'm the Assistant Director with Pasco County Community Development. And Pasco County is an entitlement community for Community Development Block Grant entitlement funds. These are the grant funds that are being proposed for the demolition of the Anderson House, as well as the creation of the community park. And I love being able to see these renditions. It's pretty awesome. Part of the concern in 2016, when we had the community development block grant application for rehabilitation of the Anderson home, was the cost to rehabilitate the home. It was considered at that point, I believe, an unsafe building. So the answer to the question is, could the community need be met if a not-for-profit were to occupy the building and work with our low to moderate income population? Absolutely, absolutely. But then we're back to our original conversation from 2016, where the cost to rehabilitate the building becomes prohibitive.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon's final questions. Two more questions, I apologize. Can unused and unwanted materials go to Habitat for Humanity?
I think that's something we can explore, but again, that would require a professional, I suppose, a professional architect or engineer to evaluate the integrity of the materials that we're salvaging. But I don't see any reason why we can't explore that option. And so if you've got a contact at Habitat for Humanity that we could talk to about that, that would be great. And then Paula, we could get with our design team and architect and consider the integrity of the materials that may be available to us after demolition.
And the final question, what measures have been taken to preserve the building since it was vacated 7 years ago?
I think probably Paula is the best one to tackle that question.
And I was going to mention, unfortunately, we don't have a representative from our facilities team here with us this evening, who would really be the best ones to answer that question. I can tell you that since before the vacancy of the building, the county has been looking at the stability of the structure. They have had consultants come in and estimate what could be done for the structure. So the county has taken an active role in monitoring the structure, evaluating the structure, and the possibilities involved in any remediation or use of the building.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit of information to that as well. Just from a cultural resources management perspective, there's a big difference between just repairing a structure and rehabilitating it in a way that is consistent with its historic integrity. And there's a long list of standards published by the Secretary of the Interior that detail how you rehabilitate a historic building while retaining its historic integrity. I can say that since it's been unoccupied, the activities to preserve this structure have mostly been not, they're not doing rehabilitation. They are doing the necessary work to keep the structure standing and to keep it free from, vandalism and from unauthorized occupation. So there haven't been many activities that would qualify as rehabilitation since it's been vacant, but there has been a lot of piecemeal work here and there done to the structure to keep it from deteriorating further.
And we did have a question one more question that came through. Who will perform the HABs report and make sure it's registered with the Library of Congress?
So right now, as the mitigation measures are still up in the air, we don't have an answer for that yet. But the way that the project will proceed is that Pasco County and the SHPO and the public will come to a final agreement on all the mitigation measures, and all of these measures will be documented in a memorandum of agreement. And at that point, Pasco County will retain the necessary firms to carry out that work. So that's not something that we have already been hired to do because it's not something that Pasco County has committed to doing yet. We need to get the public's input on these measures first and then agreement from SHPO, and that closes out the MOA, and then Pasco County will move on to hiring the teams necessary to carry out the mitigation measures.
I believe we have one final question that's come through from Mr. Cannon before we open up the floor to some speakers, and that is the building condemned? We do have the architectural consultant here with us who's done some of the structural integrity work. So Matt, between you and Mr. Theron, could you answer that question for us?
Sure, I can kick us off by saying I don't think it's condemned. I just, based on the reports that I've read, know that it's not structurally safe for occupation. But that's about the extent of my knowledge on that situation.
Excuse me, that's what we understand as well. Building hasn't been officially condemned. It's only been assessed for structural integrity and safety measures. So
Thank you. Thank you. So I know that we do have a few speakers with us this evening. So we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity, if they would like, because our guest for the Tampa Bay Times is with us, and we certainly would like to have the community thoughts included in any follow-up stories. If you are speaking tonight, if you would please clearly list your first and state your first and last name and spell that for us as well, we would appreciate it. So our first two speakers are descendants of Charles Anderson, and so here live with us we have Fran Nurenbrock, who would like to speak, and her brother George Vinson is with us virtually. And so Fran, would you like, you can speak right from there if you'd like.
Well, I wrote this. I'm not a great speaker. My name is Fran Nurenbrock, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my brother George Vinson, who lives in Indiana currently. We are Charles B. Anderson and Mary Anderson were our great-grandparents, and we were privileged to live as children in the home itself. We have incredible memories, many happy memories. I had a little description of the house, but it was well covered in what was given previously, so we won't do that. I do want to, and I guess also that the Andersons, along with O.J. Harvey and Peter and Joe Knight, were very instrumental in the development of the Elfers Citrus Growers Association, and had something to do with building of the Elfers packing house. Our mother, Mary Cook Vinson, with the help of Ann Hildebrand, County Commissioner at that time, recognized the historical value of the Anderson House, and they worked tirelessly to have that house as well as the Baker House put on the National Register. We realize the cost of bringing this remarkable home up to standards and codes is immense. If it is determined that the home must be demolished, we truly appreciate any efforts to provide the public with information about the unique structure, the builders and the occupants who helped establish the citrus industry in this area, and we see that those mitigation measures were outlined during the presentation. Family members are currently assembling photos of construction of the Anderson home, and we would be more than happy to assist in any way. And my brother and I applaud the provision of a park that includes the Baker House Museum and allows area residents to enjoy the outdoors in the oasis of live oaks and grassy terraces. Thank you.
Thank you. And George, we're going to make you a panelist and open up your microphone as well. So as long as you're unmuted from your end, we are ready to hear your comments as well.
Yes, thank you very much. This has been a most interesting session. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the people that have spent so many hours endlessly putting together such a grand description of the Anderson home and Baker as far as that goes. As Charles Anderson's great-grandson, I think I would like to say that I know quite well that he would appreciate greatly the efforts to make this property a symbol or an entry into the arts life of the people of Pasco County. Whether that includes the actual structure or it doesn't, we, as my sister Fran has stated, we would like to support whatever efforts are exerted to make whatever is going to eventually happen be completed. Having spent part of my life in the earliest years in the Baker House, and then several more years in the Anderson House, I have a great love for the property and would be willing to help any that are involved with the creation or the completion of the plan. And I thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And Mr. Cannon, I know that you had mentioned that you had questions. I'm not sure if we've covered everything for you, or if you have something additional that you would like to ask or share at this time. Okay, then I'm going to turn to the audience, and if there's anyone here else present with us here this evening that would like to make a comment or has a question. Yes.
Hi, I'm Victor C. Mallett. I'm Vice President of the West Pasco Historic Society, and feel like somebody that was kind of late to the party as far as the invitation. Seems to me like this process should have been at the beginning of this. If we know we have a historical resource, don't come up to the end and say, hey, we want to tear it down. Let's justify that. You know, how much is the cost of the Paleo West contract? Jeff Cannon hit on cost of the park development. What's the cost of demolition of the structure? What's the cost of the 3D modules? Okay, so are we fully weighing the mitigation costs against all the costs that are going to be incurred in this process? So that we've been primarily concerned with Baker House because of its era. And in talking about it through the past year with various people, you know, that was almost like it was an afterthought. You know, we're definitely not against a park being developed. Yeah, but we do like to see historic structures preserved if at all possible. Our board of directors was supposed to be meeting tonight, but since I wasn't there, there wasn't a forum. So we just found out about this about 2 weeks ago. And so we haven't adopted a formal position on the interest. I'm finished.
So I'm not sure if we have Matt muted or not, but I
think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah, here we go.
Do we have anybody else in the room that would like to make a comment? Oh, okay. There was another follow-up left in the chat, so I just want to clarify to everybody in addition to what's in the chat. Doreen asked if there will be one measure or a combination of mitigation measures, and most likely there will be a combination of mitigation measures, but due to budgeting constraints, they won't all be implemented. So we're hoping out of this public comment opportunity and further consultation with SHPO to determine which ones get selected. And then also Doreen asked who will perform the HABs report and make sure it gets registered with the Library of Congress earlier. While I did confirm that we don't know who that is yet, Part of the stipulation in the memorandum of agreement will clarify that this type of work can only be done by qualified professionals. So the county will certainly, if HAB's documentation is a route they decide to go, they will hire qualified cultural resources or historic architectural professional to develop that material to submit to the Library of Congress. And if the National Park Service gets an opportunity along with the SHPO to review that documentation, so if for some reason it's not acceptable to them, then a process will start in which they bring the documentation up to standards for submission to HABs.
Sorry. There was a question that was asked earlier, and I'm sorry, I was trying to capture it with all the responses that were given. It was in regards to, I think the question was asked because the answer that you gave was there's a difference between maintenance, there's a difference between rehabilitation. What was the question that led to that response?
Yeah, so I think it was asked what had been done to preserve or to repair the property since it had been vacant in, I think, 2015.
And then the response on that was when we talked about regular maintenance, it was like putting on the roof, the new roof and all. But then for any type of preservation that was done, it was pretty much just seeking ways to preserve it and seeking funding to do that.
I think what he was saying was that if you were fixing it up for someone to move into it, to live in, it's a lot different standard than
Then keeping that.
repairing it to the historical nature that it should be restored to.
Thank you.
Right, and since 2015, there's been a handful of repairs that have occurred at the site, and also some things just to prevent unauthorized access to the house. But I think most of those would just qualify as maintenance activities, repair activities, nothing that I think could be accurately characterized as rehabilitation of the structure in keeping with its historic integrity.
Thank you.
Last call or chance for anyone here with us. Then Matt, if you'd like to repeat, once more the opportunity to submit additional comments to you and close us out.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just going to put my information back up here on the screen. So there's my contact information. You can call me or leave me a voicemail if you want to leave another verbal comment, or feel free to send me an email or leave a written comment with a library representative. I think there was one more message in the chat. I'm just going to pull that up and see. Okay, so Doreen noted that the December 2020 letter from the State Historic Preservation Officer recommended completion of a HABs report. And that's correct. So the HABs documentation is what we consider kind of the go-to standard mitigation measure for a historic structure, including a historic house or historic bridge. If a project requires demolition of that structure, the Florida SHPO generally, at the very least, recommends HABs documentation. It's kind of the basic mitigation measure. So everything else that is being considered by the county certainly goes above and beyond what SHPO would require. And I think that just speaks to the priorities for preserving the structure that they pursued in the first iteration of this project, and that didn't work out, but they're still operating with this preservation mindset by considering all of these additional mitigation measures.
Further question, all of that's in their PDF report, all that contact information.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I uploaded a PDF version of this presentation tonight to this meeting. I can share it with Paula to upload on the project website, and that project website also has a copy of the case study report. And that goes into much greater detail about the county's attempts to develop alternatives to demolition and exploring other ways to preserve the house.
Can I make one comment, please?
Yes, absolutely.
My name is Kelly Miller. I'm the president of the Colonial Hills Civic Association, which is the neighborhood that surrounds this library. And I just wanted to say that, you know, for probably since maybe 2012, since I was the president, we have really worked hand in hand with the library and this organization. We actually even thought at one point of trying to move our not-for-profit organization into the Anderson House before the Fine Arts Committee took over. So it's been near and dear to our hearts here in Colonial Hills for a very long time. Our particular neighborhood is really yearning for a park. And it's really sad to see that we would have to tear down a historic building in order to get that. But I just wanted to thank you and your family for your generosity and the gift that you may be giving our community, because the children here really need it. They really need a place to go. Thank you.
And I do see that Mr. Kinsey, who is with us virtually, does have his hand raised. So if we could give him the opportunity to comment as well, we will do that. So Mr. Kinsey, if you're would still like to make a comment?
Oh, hi.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is Lee. I'm the L between the Charles and the Kinsey. I've never been Charles in my entire life, so let's go with Lee. First of all, I am about as biased as you possibly can get. My dad immigrated from Switzerland, Bern, Switzerland in 1903 at the age of 6. So the thought that my dad's work on the Anderson House as the builder would be a legacy for all of us. I'm getting emotional, so I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in. I'm the one that sent George all of the construction photos that you can see, along with some other pictures of the Kinsey side of the family. But this is about the Anderson House. So I just want to say I'm for tearing the house down and renewing it as a legacy to my dad. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
So Paul, I'm not sure if you could see, I just put up a different photo.
Yes, we can.
Showing construction of the house. This one, I think, was actually, along with a couple of other photos that I used, was submitted by Mary Vincent. There's a few others in there that were submitted by Fran. So thank you for those. But I think this is Lee. This is your father in the picture. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is he working or is he sitting?
Well, it's a good question. If you notice, he has what looks like design plans in the house. So
Yeah.
maybe he was just taking a break or giving directions. I'm not sure, but I have other pictures of Dad that I sent to George. So I hope to see them some point at on display with the website that you're going to do.
Yeah. Likewise.
But one other thing, I had the pleasure of staying in the Anderson House and the Baker House when it was up and running and looking like incredible. It's a beautiful home, or it was a beautiful home. The innovations were amazing. They had a nice pond out beside it, which is no longer there. So I have great memories of being in the house and visiting the house. It was surrounded by orange grove, so it looks a little different now, but it's a great house.
I think you might be able to see the pond that you're talking about in in the aerial photo here.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful home surrounded by orange groves, and they had a pond in the back of the house. It was really nice. If I remember, the parking garage was also behind the house.
Hmm.
I don't know that for a fact. It just seemed there was something down there, but maybe it was just the basement.
I think the garage does back up to the back side of the house along with the basement.
Okay,
Yeah.
my memories haven't failed me yet. I think it's a great idea, the project you're considering. I think the repairing the house is just not doable. It's not cost effective. It's not even close to it. So it should come down. That's all I've got.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and for speaking.
Sure.
Is there any other last minute comments that need to be made? And again, of course, there's plenty of opportunity to submit further comments. They don't have to get to us tonight. All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and talking for once, and I will pass it back to Paula.
Yes, so just once again, we thank all of you for joining us and sharing your comments and helping to inform us as we continue through this review process. So I encourage you to continue to reach out and to contact Matt at the locations that he shared tonight, and we will certainly get this information posted, the presentation as well as the recording on our website just as quickly as possible.
My name is Christine Fitzpatrick, Commissioner for Pasco County. I was wondering, what was the majority of this room are you trying to do you preferably want to restore, or do you preferably want to turn it into a park? Because it was about $1 million to restore, and I'm not sure the time. I know they were talking about the park, so is everyone on board with turning it into a park, or were you also wanting to?
Well, that's a question. The only point I'm making is this is kind of late in the game to be talking about restoring it. That's a foregone conclusion, it sounds to me. Seems like, and it looks like you made efforts to secure funding. But my question was, if you take all of the expenses that have gotten us to this point, how does that compare to the rehabilitation cost structure? And
That question wasn't answered.
well, I don't think
They can.
that's a bits and pieces answer that's probably not in anybody's purview. You know, facilities probably has one part of that, and the community block development grant has another part of it. So,
And did you receive a community block development grant in 2017?
Commissioner, they applied for a community development block grant in 2016 for rehabilitation, and at that point, it was not recommended for funding. They came back to us, and I think it's last year, and I'm sorry, I keep saying they, libraries came to us for a CDBG public development request to demolish the project and begin phase 1 of the Anderson Family Park, which is absolutely CDBG eligible, and it was something that the review committee recommended to the Board of County Commissioners, which was adopted by the Board of County Commissioners last year. And so this is the process that the library is going through to obtain the state's approval for the demolition of the building.
So what, did they get the CDBG funds approved? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, and in addition to the first CDBG grant that they applied for rehabilitation, there were 3 grants, all for rehabilitation projects that were grant applications that were submitted to Department of State that were also not funded. So I think as far as I can tell, there were 4 grant opportunities that were pursued for rehabilitation before they finally decided to go with the CDBG grant for the park development.
I wanted to just comment, Colonial Hills actually wrote letters in support of that rehabilitation for the first 4 years. It wasn't until last year that we actually did write, we wrote both letters because we were in support of whatever was going to happen. So we just wanted to know that it was going to be, mediated properly and that it was going to end up giving something back to the community completely. So he's correct on that. We really did go through that process for a long time trying to get that rehabilitation grant.
And we have been documented, it was 3 grants that were gone before.
Any follow-up questions? Okay, well, thank you all once again, and Matt, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate your participation tonight.
And thank you to all of our virtual guests and commenters as well. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.